All right, everybody. So I posted a video on how to do the mortality rate, the age-adjusted mortality rate using the direct method. Now let's work with the indirect method. You can, of course, find that video under all my videos. So this is a situation where we have the number of deaths and we're suspecting something suspicious is occurring, right? And we want to know if the deaths observed differ from the deaths that would be expected if the general population mortality rates apply to the population in question. So in this example, we're looking at a population of female migrant workers, and we have the number of deaths among these women, right? The observed deaths. And then we have this, and in this case, the observed deaths is 160. And you'll notice that I don't have the observed deaths stratified, right? So they're not, I don't have the deaths per stratum. I don't really need that. I just need to know that I have 160 deaths. So what we want to do is compare that to what would be expected if we have the population mortality rates. So these are the general population mortality rates among the different age strata. So what I mean by strata, we stratify the population by age. Like we have one stratum is 25 to 29, the next is 30 to 34, and the next is 35 to 44. Of course, we need some estimate of the population value. It's tough to do this if we're dealing with migrant workers because we don't always know how many there are, but we can estimate that population pretty well. So let's look at this question. A team of LaSalle University trained epidemiologists was concerned about the number of deaths from disease D, this is a horrible disease, amongst female migrant workers. There were 160 deaths in this population. Thus, we compare the death rate in this migrant population to the death rate in the general population. The data are presented in table 5. So this is table 5, and we have data there. What is the standardized mortality ratio for female migrant workers? So standardized mortality ratio is the ratio of observed deaths to deaths expected. And again, these are based on the population mortality rates. So what would we expect the deaths to be? And is there a difference? And we look for a difference in terms of the relation to 1. The value 1 would mean, so this is a quotient, numerator and the denominator are the same. 1 means there's no different in observed and expected deaths. Value greater than 1 means there's something askew. Values less than 1 are interesting too, because that could mean that somehow migrant workers are their lives are protected in some way. I don't know, whatever you want to say. So to do this, we're going to work in a step-by-step process. First, using the general population mortality rates per stratum, we're going to calculate the expected number of deaths per stratum in the general population mortality rates apply with if the general population mortality rates are applied to the migrant population. So step 1, I like to do this in steps because these tasks are very much like accounting, and it's not mathematically complicated, but you have to work everything out in a nice order for it to work out. Divide the product from step 1 by the rate base. So you don't have to do this right now. You can also do this as the last step because everything's here. These mortality rates are per 100,000. I mean, if you do this, we have to get the observed deaths, we have to divide by 100,000 in the end when we complete this, or you can divide by 100,000 now and get rid of that rate base. Step 3, add the expected deaths per stratum to get the total expected deaths if the general population mortality rates apply to the migrant population. Excuse me. And step 4, add up the observed deaths to get the total observed deaths. Not necessary, like I said, if sometimes you could have them stratified, but you really don't need that. That's what differentiates this method from the direct method. 5, divide the sum of the observed deaths by the sum of the expected deaths. This sign sigma here indicates addition or summing. And then you interpret your results. I already gave you what the interpretation means in terms of its relation to 1. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this. So here's that table, and I'll pull up a picture of my work So we had 160 observed deaths in female migrant workers. So we need the expected deaths if the population mortality rates apply to the special population. So we're going to calculate the stratum-specific expected deaths, right, based on the population mortality rates, general population mortality rates. So here are the population sizes per stratum, right? We multiply each by the mortality rate. So we had 18.45 per 100,000 for 25 to 29. So we'll multiply that times 85,077, and we get this big number, 1,569,670.65. So we continue using this procedure as we go down the different strata. And in this case, I only have 3 strata. Who knows what you may have? You may have more than 3 or 3, fewer than 3, I don't know. We add these 3 together, right? These 3 products together, and we get 9,055,842.15. As these are all per 100,000, we have to divide by 100,000 in the end to get the expected death. So we expect 90.558 deaths if the general population mortality rates apply to the special population, okay? Finally, we have to calculate the SMR. We summate the observed deaths, and we have 160. We summate the expected deaths, and we already did that. We have 90.558. So we get a value of 1.767. So as we can see, this is above 1, right? So 77% above 1. So this is telling us that there are greater deaths than would be expected among this migrant population. So something fishy is going on, or there's something wrong in the environment. So that gives us cause for pause, as they say. So I want to thank you all for watching this. Practice, practice, practice. Practice makes perfect. Bye.